It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Well, hello there. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. One of the quick updates for my life is that I have my car back, my Chevy Bolt with a B, Bravo, Chevy Bolt EV, the 100% electric car from Chevy. I had fully disclosed to you as listeners that I love the car, and I also told you that about 15 or 16 of them out of 160,000, it's a relatively small number, but a concerning number of them had caught on fire, and I now have my newer, better battery. So that's kind of cool. A couple hiccups with the dealership. I mean, I really like the service manager at this dealership, and he and I have had some very straightforward and intelligent conversations about service and how things work, and he's happy to acknowledge when there's a service failure, and he commits to trying to fix it. But apparently last week, or a little bit before last week, he was gone for a week for a vacation. That's cool. He can have a vacation. I don't problem him having a vacation. But when I called the dealership and I asked for him, they would say he's not available right now, or he did this, or he's outside of the building right now and they can't find him. And he wasn't there because he was on vacation. Why the fuck would you lie to me, employee of the dealership? Don't do that. If the person I want to talk to is not there, just tell me they're on fucking vacation. Tell me who can answer my question. And if there's nobody, tell me he's on vacation and I can get my question answered next week when he comes back. Why make a game out of it? So that kind of pissed me off. The other thing that really got under my skin, and this is... it's one of those things. I have an extra vehicle. So there's two drivers and we have three cars. The third one is a 2003 Toyota Sienna. So it's nothing fancy, man, but it's a minivan. I can carry stuff. And if I take a car to a shop and I don't get a loaner, I could use that to drive around. But part of the recall from General Motors specifically says you get a loaner car while your car is in the shop to get this recall done. So when I called, I had my appointment scheduled. The service manager called me and asked if we could wait a week, which I agreed to, in part because they still had employees going through the training and they wanted to make sure that they knew what they were doing. I wanted them to know what they were doing. So I happily waited a week, not a problem. And then, of course, the vacation thing. And when I called somebody, I said, oh, by the way, the previous week I didn't need a loaner just because I wasn't really going anywhere. But since I've delayed a week to partially accommodate you guys and to partially make sure it gets done correctly, they said, we have already signed out all the loaners, but I could put you on the list. And so if somebody cancels, you can get on the list. Okay, I guess. I don't know. How likely is it that I'm going to get on the list? I have no way of knowing that. So a couple days later, I call and I said, well, has anybody not gotten a loaner? And this employee says, we don't have loaner cars anymore. So you're not on any list. You're just not going to get a car. I was like, okay, that's not cool. It specifically says in the recall document from GM that you're going to give me a loaner. Well, we don't have any. Okay. So I figured, you know what? I'll wait until I drop off the car. My mistake. I wait till I drop off the car. My guy, the boss, still not back from vacation. And they won't even tell me he's on vacation. He's not out. He's not in today. And they said, we don't even have loaner cars because GM took them all back because of the chip shortage. What? GM took them back because of the chip shortage? That, to me, didn't make any fucking sense. So I had it and went and talked to the person in charge for that day. And I said, okay, look, now it's kind of a principle thing. I want a car because I was promised a car by General Motors. And he's like, well, we don't have them. I was like, don't make this my problem. This is your problem. And I have since found out, because I'm in a Facebook group about Bolt EVs, that a lot of dealerships don't really have loaners available. But in the case of this, where it's promised, they work with a local rental agency and have a car sitting there waiting for you. And they pay the rental agency $20, $30 a day, and they get reimbursed by GM anyway. So it was a moment of which should have been happiness that I'm taking my car to get it repaired, but it just became frustration and anxiety and poor service. I did write an email to the boss guy, and when I went to get my car a couple of days later, after it was done, he acknowledged that they were making up answers, that they shouldn't have done that, and he's going to go over that again at their next meeting to just give honest answers to people. And they do have fewer loaner cars because they have fewer cars in total. And so sometimes they've sold the loaner cars, which is what they normally do, but they don't have new cars to replace them. So they do have almost no loaner cars. And I think what I actually ended up with was one of the dealership cars that they use to go around and do errands or whatever business need they might have. It was actually a Chevy Trax. I guess it's called an SUV technically, mini SUV. And after having my electric car, trying to drive this thing, oh goddamn, it sucked. Just from the experience of driving, because in virtually any electric car, your ability to accelerate, the feeling of perkiness, that's fucking gone. So I don't remember exactly what the 0 to 60 in my car is, and it's not a $100,000 car. It's a $30,000 car, maybe a $25,000 car now. But when you push the accelerator down, it goes as fast as I've ever wanted to go. I don't even know if it should be, maybe it should be illegal to go this fast, to accelerate this quickly. But let's just say it's 5 seconds. And I don't know the actual number, so maybe I should look it up. But the joke I said was that my electric car goes from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. The Chevy Trax, I confirmed, can actually go from 0 to 60. That's about all I could say for it. I didn't time it. It was not pretty. Yeah. And it only had 4,000 miles on it. But I don't know how big the engine is, but it's really small compared to the size and the weight of the vehicle. Underperformance was the thing. And of course, I didn't have seat heaters. I didn't have a steering wheel heater. Yeah, I know. First world privilege. Maybe rich white guy first world privilege. But I missed my car, even though it was gone for a couple days. Went and picked it up. And my friend, the boss at a service department, was back. And we had a nice long chat about the email I sent him and the stuff that I've already told you. And he went and showed me the crates where the batteries are coming in. And these crates are pretty much the size of a queen size bed. Well, actually, the size of 3 queen size beds, maybe 4 queen size beds stacked. I mean, it's like a carton you would see in old movies when they deliver something to a museum of antiquities, and you need a crowbar and a couple of people. I've seen in some other forums where the hardest part of the battery replacement is getting the new battery out of the crate. I believe it. It looks like it could be a lot of work. But everything worked great. I've driven my car a day or two now. So my Chevy Bolt, and I mentioned before, the new battery has 8% more battery, more capacity to store kilowatt hours of energy. So it can, of course, go 8% farther. And theoretically, it can charge a little bit faster than my previous battery because it's a little bit better battery technology. And of course, it comes with a brand new, starting over 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty on the battery itself. So I already drove 3 years on the previous battery, and now I'm getting 8 more. So I'm going to have 11 years of battery coverage, and I get a better battery. All in all, it's not so bad. This show, coming up in this show, I have an interview with Craig Good where we're going to talk about food and diets and how that kind of stuff works. And also a segment that I've had many people ask for, so I didn't really have a choice. If you guys want to hear stuff, let me know. If I get 1 or 2 questions, maybe I'll do it. I do have a lot of ideas, and you guys send in a lot of amazing ideas. But this one kind of came up with a bunch of people, and it goes with some of the other stuff that I've done recently, which is probably why the surge of emails. But it's a segment on the Backdoor Roth IRA and the MEGA Backdoor ROTH IRA. And these are very fancy loopholes in the law that you might be able to use, but the number of people that can use them is very small. To do a backdoor Roth IRA, I would guess it's only practical, available, and useful for 5% of my listeners, not 5% of the general population, because you guys are smarter and on average make more money than the average person. But the MEGA Backdoor Roth IRA is going to be 1 or 2% because you have to make enough money to use it. Your employer has to meet certain conditions and criteria in your 401k plan, which it probably doesn't. And we go over those in the segment. So that's all coming up in this show. In the next show, I've already recorded a segment, again, on annuities. I went to, an in-person meeting where some nice people told me all the positive and cool things about the annuities that they have to offer. And I did get a little bit of free food, and I did get to watch people hit golf balls, which is not my thing. It was a very nice experience. It was, meeting other people in the real world, so that was kind of nice. And they gave a lot of really cool and useful information. And then after I got all the good information and had a night of sleep, I then did a segment where I kind of read through the documents in real time for the segment that's going to be next week. And you'll get to find out, do I still like it after reading the details? That's my teaser for the next episode. But that's enough for this introduction. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk about MEGA Roth IRAs, MEGA Backdoor Roth, and the regular Backdoor Roth. So enjoy.
And what's meant to happen when you die and go to heaven? You see a big bright light. You walk towards the light. What's at the end of the light? All your dead relatives. Well, whoop-de-fucking-do. You ever spent a weekend at your grandparents' house? It's fucking shit. You'd be out there for an hour going, wish all me friends would die. Be out there meeting everyone. Hello, Nana. Hello, Grandad. Hello, Uncle who used to touch me. How did you get up here? Oh, that's right, you used to work for the church. You hear that little groan when I said that? When I said you have to work for the church? It's because religious people are in the crowd and they don't like hearing facts. That's a fact. There's been pedophiles in the Catholic Church. It's been on 60 Minutes. Fucking fact. But I say, and it's like, oh, no, because religious people will forgive God for fucking anything. If he, in their mind, he does good things. Rainbows, children's laughter, shit like that, right? But when he does bad things like hurricanes, AIDS, cancer, child molestation, then we just go, oh, well, God works in mysterious ways. What type of an excuse is that? What is mysterious about acting like a fucking asshole? That is like the least mysterious activity since the dawn of time. If I ever date a religious girl, she's going to come home and I'm going to be raping her mum, right? And she's going to look at me and go, what are you doing? And I'm going to go, I'm mysterious. I've always been mysterious.
This Investing Skeptically segment is on the Backdoor Roth IRA and the MEGA Backdoor Roth 401k, etc. And you can learn more about them at investopedia.com. And there's many posts and blog posts that go into the details of how these work. I'm going to cover a lot of that, but I may not have every little detail. But before I get into the details, keep in mind that while this is currently still allowed, at some point in the future, it may be disallowed by Congress voting a little line in a law that says you can't do this. It'd be that easy. It's a vote. So let's start with simple things. If you are making some money, you have earned income, and you want to put money into an IRA, you can do so. And I'm not going to go over the dollar amount for the limits here, but as long as you don't make too much money, let's just say around 100,000, you can put money into your IRA. If you are married, you can also put money into your spouse's IRA, even if they do not have any earned income. And I think right now the limits per year is 6,000 plus an additional bonus of 1,000 if you are over the age of 50 or in the year in which you turn 50 or above. So that's an IRA. That's fine. That's fantastic. However, if you make too much money, you can no longer put in deductible money into the IRA. And I use the word deductible on purpose, and I'll come back to that in a moment. If you don't qualify for putting deductible funds into the IRA, the next thing you can look at is the Roth IRA. Now, you might also think, even if you qualify for the traditional deductible IRA, that it's in your best interest to put it into the Roth IRA. And you might be right, because money you put into a Roth IRA, you don't get any tax benefits currently, but all future growth, including the money you put in, you never pay tax on it ever again. That sounds pretty cool. The math is kind of basically saying you either pay taxes up front or you don't pay taxes up front. And of course, the opposite is true. You either pay taxes at the end or you don't pay taxes at the end. Theoretically, if everything stayed the same, it works out to about the same money. However, I'm of the opinion that somewhere in the future, taxes are going to be higher than they are now. Also, if your income is higher now than you expect it to be in retirement, a traditional IRA might be better for you because you avoid more taxes now than in the future. But that being aside, you may also find yourself in the position, and good for you if you do, that you make too much money and you cannot do either a deductible IRA or a Roth IRA. And for this year, 2021, that amount is something around $200,000. If you're lucky enough to be in that position, and of course that $200,000 is for a married couple filing jointly. The numbers are different for a single person filing on their own. So you can now you can't do a traditional deductible IRA. You can't contribute to a Roth IRA. But what you can do is go back to that traditional IRA and put in non-deductible money. So let's say you can put in $6,000. You put in $6,000 and it's $6,000 after tax. You don't get any savings on your tax bill and you put that $6,000 in there. It will grow if you leave it there, and all of the earnings and everything will be taxed when you take the money out, but you get to defer taxes in the meantime. The problem is that you would have to very accurately, meticulously collect and maintain all of your records to show that the $6,000 that you put in, you had already paid tax on it. If you don't have all those records, or drop something or lose something 20 years from now in retirement, when you take money out, that $6,000, you would end up paying tax on it a second time. I don't like the sound of that, so I'm not interested in that. But what you can do then is, if you have $6,000 in your IRA, non-deductible contributions, you can do what's called a recharacterization, and you can say that money should be over into a Roth, and you're going to pay all the taxes that you owe on it. And if you do it at the moment or the day after you put the money in, the taxes that you owe are nothing because you're already paying taxes on the $6,000. So up to this point, I hope it makes sense, because now here's where it gets fucked up. If you already have money in your IRA account, whether that money is deductible, hopefully it is, or non-deductible, the money that you add is non-deductible and becomes part of a big pool of money. So if you have $100,000 deductible in your IRA and you add $6,000 non-deductible for this year, and you say to yourself, I now am going to move that $6,000 over to a Roth. The IRS says, no, you're not. What the IRS has ruled is that from that pool of $106,000, you're going to move $6,000. And you have to take the prorated amounts of deductible and non-deductible money and move it. So in this case, a teeny bit below 6% of the money is after tax or non-deductible, and 94% of the money that you move, you already claimed the tax credit on it. So now you have to pay tax on that money to move it. And of course, the money that you left behind is now a mix of deductible and non-deductible funds. And again, you will have to maintain not only that you put in deductible money and non-deductible money, the ratio of the funds that in absolute dollars that left and went to the Roth IRA. As you can imagine, if you do this a second and third time, it gets wickedly complicated. And I personally think it is more paperwork than it's worth. So when people come to me and say, hey, Phil, I just read an article on how to do a backdoor Roth IRA, and I want to go do that. Now, again, keeping in mind, if you're even thinking about a backdoor Roth IRA, if you're a married couple, you're probably making north of $200,000. Hopefully, you both have 401ks that you've maxed out, you've done the match, and we'll talk about the MEGA Backdoor Roth over there. But hopefully you've done all the other things that are far easier than this before you really give this serious thought. The next thing is that if you have a lot of money already in IRAs as deductible contributions and the growth on the deductible contributions, I would say don't fucking do it. If, however, you feel confident tracking in perpetuity what part of your portfolio in a specific account or all IRA accounts clumped together, if you feel that you're confident that you can maintain the records of what part is deductible and what part is non-deductible, go for it. You are going to have to do that work. I am not doing that work. Now, if you have a qualified tax professional, a registered agent, a CPA, somebody or some company that helps you with your taxes, they will probably be able to maintain those records for you. They might do it for free. They might want a little extra money because this is going to get really complicated and they're going to spend time doing it. And you're going to have to pay for it. So even if it was worth it marginally, now it may not be worth it at all because you're paying extra fees or spending extra time out of your life to do something for what I consider to be possibly a very small marginal benefit. A couple of ways that you can avoid this problem and still do the backdoor Roth IRA with much more simplicity. One, you can take every single dollar that you have in IRAs and convert it over to Roth IRAs. And then the next year, start using the backdoor Roth. As an example, if you had $100,000 in a deductible IRA and you say, I want to move that all to Roth, that's fine. You can do that. That entire $100,000 will be taxed as if it was current income. You won't have a penalty, the 10% penalty, but if your marginal tax rate is 28%, your $100,000 will create a $28,000 tax bill. You need to have $28,000 sitting around to pay the tax bill. If you say, hey, I'll just take $28,000 out and then pay the taxes with that, that $28,000 now becomes a distribution and not a recharacterization. So it doesn't go from the IRA to the Roth, it goes from the IRA to your pocket. If you are younger than 59 and a half, now you have to pay tax and penalty on all of that, therefore owing even more money than the $28,000 that you took out. So proceed with caution. The other thing that you could do if your employer allows it, you might be able to take your IRA funds, all of your IRA money, and add it to your 401k, which is possible, not likely, or your 403b, which is less likely. Some employers allow outside funds to be rolled into the 401k or 403b or some similar plan. Most do not. But if they allow you, if you check with HR and check with the custodian who holds your 401k, like Fidelity or Vanguard or somebody like that, if you're all positive that they'll take your IRA money, once you've moved all your IRA money into a 401k, then the next year, when you add money that's non-deductible, 100% of all of your money in any and every IRA account that you have is now non-deductible money, and you can move it to your Roth without the complications that you would have otherwise had. Again, it's a bit of work. So there's that. So that's the gist of the Backdoor Roth IRA. Now, the MEGA Backdoor Roth IRA, as one can imagine, is considerably bigger than the other trick that we talked about, and it generally revolves around a 401k program. It might work for other qualified retirement programs from your employer. I am not sure that it does. So there's a little thing where I'm not confident beyond a certain point. So I'm going to talk only about 401k plans, not a 403b, not a 457, not a pension. The pension, most assuredly, this cannot work. 401k, it can work under very specific conditions. First of all, you have the ability to put in additional money into your 401k. So the 401k needs to be broken up in 3 different buckets, and your employer or a qualified person like an accountant or a TPA, a third-party administrator, would have to keep track of all of the tricks and the nuances in this. This is not something that you should try on your own. There is a good chance you will fuck it up. There's a lot of rules and laws. I do not do this on my own. I will not do this on my own. I will pay somebody if I were to do this. So here's how it works. In the 401k, as you probably know, you have a certain amount of money you can put in. Let's say it's $19,000 for calendar year 21. I think that's the right amount. Double check me if you're still adding money to your 401k. Double check on the internet or with your tax professional. And of course, you could put more money in if you're over 50. But let's just say it's $19,000 and you've put in everything that you can put in for the calendar year. Freaking awesome. Now, your employer can also put in money, and they might put in 3% of your pay, 5% of your pay, 50% of your contribution, up to 10%, which is 5% if you put in 10%, whatever magical way or they just give you money, however they put it in, however they have deemed the appropriate amount for you is, that goes in a second bucket from the employer, and that's generally considered a part of the 401k called the profit sharing part of the 401k. As far as you're concerned, it's a match. It's a 401k. It's your 401k. It's got your name on it. It's a match. There might be a vesting period of several years, but it eventually will be your money if you stay working there for a while. If your plan then allows for and maintains a third bucket, you can do an additional contribution to your 401k that is not a Roth contribution, and it is non-deductible. So it's not like the first $19,000 you put in, and it's not like the second batch of money, the profit sharing that the employer put in, but it's a completely separate third bucket. Now, this third bucket could have its own unique account number, or it could be maintained as a sub-account. Again, not something you should do on your own. This tertiary bucket, the third bucket, is not it's not tax deductible. It's after-tax money. It's also not Roth IRA money. It's a bastard child, I guess. It's a whole different separate thing. And once you put that money in there, into this third bucket, you can then recharacterize it either into the Roth IRA or Roth 401k portion of your plan, which you may not have, or you might be able to do what's called an in-service withdrawal into a Roth IRA held somewhere else that calendar year. And you're going to want to do this right after you put the money in. Some really big companies have this all set up for you, and it's easy. So you put in your regular 401k money, the employer puts in their matching funds, and then they create an additional bucket that you can sign a form and withhold a portion of your pay or a flat dollar amount, and it funds and it falls into that third bucket. But then you, and again, a few employers have made this automatic, you have to move that money from that third bucket into your Roth IRA. If you do not move the money immediately, within a day or two, and even worse, if you invest it, whatever money it makes, you will be subject to taxes on the gains in that additional part of the portfolio in that third bucket. So if you do this at all, it's ideal that you either do it as one lump sum contribution and then move it out, or your employer, let's say they pay you every 2 weeks, they indicate how much of your money you've agreed to not be paid that goes into this bucket, and then they automatically, a day or two after each payroll run, move it over to your individual personal Roth IRA. So that can be done. It's just a question of whether it's worth it to you. Now, the amount that you can do for the MEGA Backdoor Roth IRA is limited to a pretty big number. And I think for this calendar year, it's around $38,500. Now, the $38,500 is the amount of money you can put into a 401k, all three buckets combined. The personal limit that you can put in is 19. If the employer then puts in $3,000, that's 22. You still haven't made it to $38,500. So the additional money you could have as deferred compensation going into the third bucket within your 401k. If the combination of these three funds, these three contributions goes over the annual limit, it will cause you problems that you don't want to have. So you have to be sure that your employer can do it. You have to know in advance for the entire year how much money your employer is going to put in. And you have to know how much money you're going to put into your own individual part of the 401k. And I think I just misspoke the numbers, because the total amount is something like in the 60,000s. The 38,500 is the total maximum for the profit sharing part from the employer. And so if they give you $3,000, you would have an additional $35,500 that you could add and then roll over to a Roth. If that all works out for you, if your employer lets you do that, if you have income sufficient to play this game, congratulations. The idea that you could save $30,000 or more every year and put it into a 401k is fantabulous. Now, you still have to pay tax on that money because you earned it. So not only do you have to have 30,000 plus to be able to not collect and not go to your bank and be invested, you still have to pay tax on that money as if you had earned it. Now, the payoff is down the road. If you put in $30,000 each year into your MEGA Backdoor Roth 401k thingy, that $30,000 over 10 years is $300,000. And of course, hopefully it went up, and maybe now 10 years later it's worth $500,000. You would have $500,000 that you can take out after the age of 59 and a half, in the year in which you turn 59 and a half. And after you've had the Roth account for at least 5 years, you can then take out any amount of money that you want, and you never, ever, ever, under current law, owe any taxes on all of that money. So you have $500,000 in this theoretical scenario that you owe no taxes on it. A Roth IRA also has the benefit that when you turn 72, you still do not have to take any money out. As a traditional IRA, you have to take money out. You're forced to take money out at the age of 72. And it's a very small percentage, like 3, 4, 5%. It's all based on the actual actuarial tables from the IRS of life expectancy. But the Roth, you don't have to take anything out at all. And you can just let it keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And this is why some of this stuff has become a problem with Congress, because there are people who've squirreled away millions, tens of millions, and allegedly one person even has $1 billion in there because they bought a penny stock and it went up 1,000 times. Now, the beautiful thing is they're never, ever, ever going to have to pay tax on that. And the federal government looks at that and says, wait a minute, people are making a killing and we never get any taxes other than the initial contribution. And this is another one of those things that this helps people that make real money avoid more taxes. Very fucking cool if you have a bunch of money. not everybody can do this. Matter of fact, I would be surprised if 1% of the population has the financial means and an employer that has the program where they track the third bucket of money and a 401k that allows in-service withdrawals, which means you are allowed to take money out while you still work there. But if you meet all of these conditions, you could do a MEGA Backdoor Roth IRA, and on an extra $30,000, you do have to pay tax on it as earnings, but you'll never have to pay tax on it as growth. And it has been proposed in the past, only in passing. This last go around, it was a serious consideration, and my understanding is it did not make the bill that just got signed by Biden. If I'm wrong, correct me, because this is important. But at some point in the future, they might say either that you cannot do this, or that the original money you put in, of course, that's not taxed because you paid tax on it, but now the additional monies will pay taxes. I don't know. That's up to the future. And again, it's just a simple vote. So hopefully that's all clear. That is what a backdoor Roth IRA first, and then the MEGA Backdoor Roth or the MEGA Backdoor Roth 401k. That's what they are, and that's how they work. And again, if that's something you want to do, I insist that your tax professional agree with you, understand all the rules and conditions. And a few times I've had people say, Phil, I want to do this backdoor Roth IRA, the $6,000 thing. And I will insist that I first talk to their accountant because I want to make sure the accountant knows how to do it. Anyway, that's a lot of numbers, a lot of math, and hopefully my in real-time corrections did not cause too much confusion, but hopefully you get the idea of it. If you have more questions about this or you want another show topic, send me an email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com.
I'm not worried about dying because I'm an atheist, right? Now, I know that this is a Christian country and I stand up for your right to be religious, but please know that you're wrong, right? Please know that you're living in a fantasy land and that after you die, nothing happens. Stop being a fucking child. I'm not scared of dying because I'm an atheist. I know I'll just rot in the ground, right? I won't even know I'm dead. Do you want to know why? Because I'll be fucking dead. Religious people worry because they believe in heaven. If there's a heaven, there has to be a hell. And everyone who's read that book knows that you've done enough shit to go to hell, right? And that makes it very stressful on your deathbed, doesn't it? Knowing what a prick you are, going, oh, this isn't going to be good. Hey? I don't want to go to heaven. I don't even want the option of heaven. I don't want to exist in a conscious state for the rest of eternity, constantly thinking. I don't like thinking as it is. Where's me passport? Can't punch women in the face. The Bible calls heaven eternal bliss. I don't care how blissful it is. It's eternal. You'll get used to it, and then you'll be fucking bored. And what's hell meant to be like? Fire and brimstone and eternal agony? That's what's written in the Bible. That's God's book. As far as I know, the devil hasn't brought out a book. We don't know his side of the argument, right? If you ask me, the devil and God are having an argument. The devil's being a bigger fucking man because God's just writing shit about him. And the devil's going, I'm not even going to fucking comment, son, if you talk about me like that.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody, it's that special time of the show where we have our interview. And this gentleman has a very interesting history. And of course, I'm going to encourage him to tell us about it a little bit. But we also are going to talk a lot about his book. This book is Relax and Enjoy Your Food, written by Craig Good. And he is with us today. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Not a problem. If you don't mind, walk us through a little bit of your background and how you got to this place to write this book.
What brought me to this low
Yeah.
state? Yeah. So I spent 30 years working at Pixar, 31 years. I don't know who's counting.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
And yeah, no one had heard of us at the beginning, and then everybody had.
Yeah.
I remember the moment when my daughter came back from school in, I think, second grade, puzzled look on their little face saying, "Dad, Pixar's kind of famous." Just kid who grew up in it. So
Yeah.
he realized, everybody else knew it. And speaking of the daughter, later they got a diagnosis of anorexia, which definitely got my attention.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's the most deadly mental illness there is. It's got quite a high mortality rate, and that got my attention. And I had already been interested in food and cooking. I've been subscribing to Cooks Illustrated since 1993 and things like that. But that brought me up close and personal with how important a healthy relationship with food is. And then you can kind of fast forward a little bit. We worked through recovery. And in my book, anybody who recovers from an eating disorder is a badass.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, and they did great. Then I fell into this question and answer site called Quora. I don't know if you've heard
I've heard
of
it.
Quora.com.
Yep.
Yeah. And I did a lot of writing and answering questions, and I would answer questions about atheism and Pixar, and then got into food and started realizing that everyone was asking the same questions over and over again. That there was just such a hunger, deliberate use of the word, for good information about food, that I decided, well, I'm going to write a book about it, because it doesn't have to be that complicated. The science is complicated, but the basics of nutrition really aren't that complicated.
Yeah. Before we go further, I want to make sure your daughter is doing well now, I trust.
Yes.
Okay. I got that impression from the book, but I wanted to make sure.
Yes, thank you for asking. Yeah. A high-end hairstylist in Portland, Oregon now, and
Nice.
And a foodie. So there you go.
So she now has a healthy relationship with food.
Definitely.
Something that so many of us take for granted. It can become a challenge, and I don't want to make it all about this particular illness, but it is a big fucking deal. And your book, you cover that and give suggestions and wisdom for that. So thank you for talking about that. I think that's very important to have it included within your book.
Yeah, it's not the main part of the book.
Yeah.
But I wanted people to know, in case you have someone in your family or in your life who's dealing with an eating disorder, it helps to know how to deal with it, because it's very counterintuitive.
And I would think, and correct me, because you're the expert on this, I know only from stories, including yours, that probably one of the most important things for you to do as a caring parent, in this case, is to get professional help from a doctor.
Yeah. Don't try to self-diagnose.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
Do get professional help. But for family and friends, it's mostly just do what you can to keep their life as normal as possible.
Yeah. Well, excellent. You did throw out atheism. How did you get to that part of your life? How did that come about?
Well, I was raised Mormon.
Yeah. So you're a foreman now?
I am a foreman.
Yeah, former Mormon.
I'm one of the famous foremans. Well, I'm not as famous as some other foremans I could name, like Mr. Deity.
Yeah.
But I was all in until actually a little after my daughter was born. And one of the teachings that I liked at the time of the Mormon Church is that God is a loving father who just wants for his children what we want for our children. And that makes intuitively quite a bit of sense.
Yeah, fair enough.
Until I had a kid and thought, well, I don't really want them to be worshiping me and thanking me all the time. And I actually don't want them to be obedient. I want someone who thinks for themselves. And so that started pushing me over the edge. And then I read Dr. Nathaniel Branden's book, Honoring the Self,
Right.
which is a great, it's kind of the book on self-esteem. And got to the last chapter. I remember I was sitting on an airplane about to push back from the gate at Burbank Airport, hit this chapter where he did a takedown of Christianity, and boom, my faith fell away. And it was, I will admit, it was traumatic. I did a lot of crying because my whole worldview was gone. You know, the afterlife, it's gone. I'm not going to see these people again.
Yeah,
you know,
the people who are dead are actually really dead.
They're really dead. They're really gone. And it was a big adjustment, but, you know, after hunting around and spending the last 20 some years figuring things out, I'm happier than I ever was, and cheerfully atheist now. So.
Funny side note, you mentioned Mr. Deity. I actually did a video with him. It was in one of the episodes of the
cool.
Mr. Deity podcast or video TV show.
I may have missed that one.
Yeah, it was. I came in as his financial advisor because he's always having trouble with management.
Well, he would.
And his character anyway. And he couldn't come up with money, so I suggested that he start saving 10% of all the money he brings in, and he misinterprets it and thinks that everyone that worships him should give him 10%. And so I actually caused tithing in his.
Oh, that was your fault.
Yeah, in his little universe. So.
It was some money I wish I had back, but that's okay.
Yeah, it was very fun, but very, very different. I had never done acting.
Yeah.
And the resulting video was, in my opinion, evidence of his brilliant editing skills, because it wasn't because of my acting skills.
Well, one thing I learned in 3 decades of making movies is that movies are made in editing.
Yes.
And everybody else's job is just to get them the raw materials.
Yeah, just get it good enough so you can edit it to make it brilliant.
Absolutely.
Now, what did you do exactly at Pixar?
The last 18-some-ish years, I did camera work.
Okay.
It was a specialty we called camera polish, so I was doing the final operation and focus pulling on the cameras.
And I have no idea what that means, but you made the pictures look pretty? Is that what?
As part of making them pretty, making shots flow together, my big drum solo was on Wall-E. I got to touch every single shot in that movie. And Andrew Stanton, the director, had said, you know, I'm worried that I'm telling a love story between 2 robots.
Yeah.
And we might be missing intimacy. So part of the camera grammar that we used was to imply that there were camera operators in the room with the robots to subliminally pull some humanity in. So all that little hunting around and following the action, that was me animating the camera operator and getting the focus on the correct part of the frame, because we shot very shallow depth of field. That was me animating a focus puller. That focus puller is the person on a movie set who makes sure the camera is in focus. It's a job most people don't know about, but it's been called the most important job on the set, because if the focus puller messes up, you have nothing.
Oh, excellent. I'm now have to watch the movie. I've never seen it.
Okay.
I've seen snippets of it, but maybe I just need to sit down and watch it from beginning to end. I know a lot of people love it. Yeah. A lot of great stuff. So relax and enjoy your food. Of course, you must have said it 50 times in the book. For people who don't want to listen to the rest of the interview, what's the 1 or 2 sentence solution? What do they do to eat better?
The takeaway is that the best diet advice you can get, the best nutrition advice you can get. Speaking of editing, I hope you can do something with that.
No, we're going to leave it in there.
Right.
We're just having it casual.
Is to enjoy a variety of foods, mostly plants, including plenty of fruits and veggies, not too much and not too little.
There you go.
And anyone giving you advice much more specific than that is selling something.
Yeah, and we know a lot about that. I do want to say one of the nice things about the book that I was actually surprised by, it was very, very humorous while still caring. It was very lighthearted, and you wanted just to keep reading because it was amusing. Not in a hysterical kind of way, but I don't know, kind of just a lighthearted, fun way, kind of like probably like that movie I haven't seen, but it just had that feeling of humanity to it, where we're just talking about some things that you can do to try to make your life better, and in a lighthearted way, and it's not too serious, it's not too stressful, and it kind of goes with the title, of course, relax and enjoy, and the book is like that.
Thank you so much. That was actually the intent. I wanted to be solidly grounded in science.
Yeah.
And I provide lots of little links for further reading for people who want to dig down into the science. But I wanted it to be accessible, and I wanted it to be simple and practical.
Yeah.
You know, I think I can actually claim that this book will pay for itself very quickly.
Oh, I think.
If you spend money on supplements or vitamins, or if you're habitually buying organic food, it will pay for itself in about a week.
One thing that I found a little concerning from my mind is that virtually every single person that you cited in the book, I know them. And that worried me a little bit, because now I'm wondering if you and I, which maybe we should have met years ago, that we're kind of in the same bubble, and it's always dangerous to rely too much on the people that are in your sphere. But that just kind of struck me as weird, that I was like, oh, I know her, I know him, I know her. That was kind of odd, but
well, the scientific skepticism movement is fairly broad, but you know, there are people who are kind of nodes in that network.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're likely to know the novellas and the Sci-Babes and the, you know, Dr. Harriet Halls. You know, those people, they're likely to be in our orbit. You know, we already know we have Keith Dalton in common.
Yes.
Although you've met him a lot more than I have.
I've only known him a couple times. That I had to actually harass him to do that episode a little.
Yeah. So that's fair, and I applaud that skepticism. You may recall in the beginning of the book, I say, I'm going to tell you something that most book authors won't, and that is, I might be wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want you to accept this because I say so. I'm not the expert. I am pretty good at finding experts. And I think you're pretty good at finding experts, which is probably why we've found a bunch of the same experts.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've had occasions in the past, and they happen regularly, I guess, just to be humble, where I make mistakes on the stuff in my field, where I say the wrong word, or I'm just flat out wrong, and people point it out, and in a future episode, I correct myself. I've had people, I guess, criticize me that I diminish my reputation by publishing corrections. And I basically have told those people, fuck off, because that's what I do. I make mistakes. I correct them. I want to get closer to being correct on a regular basis.
That's essentially the difference between science and religion.
Yeah, and it's
right?
funny.
Self-correcting versus, we don't have to change our mind.
Yeah, a lot of it, and it's probably because of where you came from being a foreman. I could sense that underlying tension with religion, and how unfortunately religion, or at least a lot of them, teach, I don't know if gullibility is the right word, but they teach that you should just listen to and take what I say on faith or as a fact, and then people will take that way of looking at the world and apply it to food, and they apply it to medicine. And you know, when someone points out that your bread has the same chemical as a yoga mat, that's what is her name?
The food babe.
The food babe. That's the bad person who not necessarily a bad person, but a person that takes weird things and makes these weird connections like Glenn Beck used to do on Fox and convince you that everything is unholy to eat. And people just buy that hook, line, and sinker, and it distorts reality, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's not I mean, some religions do promote strange ideas about food, but it's more that the same attitudes that make people religious when they get applied to food are the source of food fads and food fears, things like that. It's conflating the idea that that there's something good or evil about what you eat.
Yeah. And,
right.
and
there are good foods and bad foods, and that's really dangerous.
I like that idea with good foods and bad foods not being a thing.
Right.
The thing is, if you eat bacon for every meal, it's not that bacon's bad per se. It's that you're only eating bacon, dumbass, and that's not healthy.
You're not getting enough
for almost any food. You don't want to eat that.
You're not getting enough variety then.
And so the variety to enjoy all the thousands or tens of thousands of different things that you can eat, just try to find, even if it's only marginally to start, more things in that fruit and vegetable section that you walk through first when you go into the store.
Yeah.
Sure, you can get anything packaged and prepared, and it's perfectly fine in moderation, but try to eat an apple or a green pepper or broccoli. I never liked broccoli. Now I do. And it was funny because it was one of the things at the end of your book. Try something over and over and over, and you become used to it, and it's not bad anymore. It's good.
It's called habituation.
Yeah.
Yes, you can learn to like any food, and it's how you learn to like the things you like. Why do you like mom's food best? It's because what mom made all the time.
Yeah, you ate it over and over and over. So anything has to measure against what you consider to be the standard.
Right.
Which is that food. The funny thing is I have issues, which my listeners know, but one of them is tastes. And anything that is beer or wine, I can't drink it. And I've tried. There's something in my brain when I taste a sip of wine that says this food has gone south and I should not consume it. It revulses me. So that's probably not going to work.
My daughter jokes that it tastes like bug spray.
It is quite awful. And the thing that's funny is I can taste a lot of the different things that they talk about in wines, and I can distinguish between different wines, but they're all awful. So
well, and that's just taste. And one of the things that drives me crazy is when people, go on these righteous little jihads, like on Twitter, they'll put up some food that they think is that they don't like pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And they'll talk about it as though you're some kind of monster if you enjoy it. And no, you just don't like that. And the proper response when someone else doesn't like a food you like is, yay, that much more for me.
Well, the two things that pop into my head in that category is candy corn and circus peanuts.
Sure.
But sometimes I buy them for the very fact that no one else will eat them.
There you go. Exclusivity.
Yeah, because then I do get more. But yeah, you talk about people who are promoting superfoods or magic foods or special foods. What do you think about those?
Well, there's no such thing, turns out.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a health food. There's no such thing as junk food. There's no such thing as a superfood. There's no such thing as a fattening food. Because the individual food isn't what matters. It's your overall diet. The other way I put it in the book is what you eat today doesn't matter. What you eat this month matters quite a bit.
And I think one of the magical things about that, if someone can embrace this philosophy, is that if from time to time you have some bacon, you have a piece of cake, if you have some ice cream, it's really going to be okay. But
it's going to be fine.
If you have a pint of ice cream every day, all right, we may have to talk.
Then you're not getting enough variety.
Yeah. So, and it's so funny because it's not necessarily just that you're having too much ice cream. It's doing exactly what you just said, is that you're not eating the other things that you could be eating, because you can only eat so much stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I like to say that will often raise eyebrows is that what you eat today doesn't matter.
Yeah. I like it because it takes a lot of the anxiety away.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the goal, to relax and enjoy your food. You can eat pretty much whatever for a while. This is really important with the holidays coming up, when we're all going to enjoy some big splurgy meal. Don't feel guilty about any of it.
Yeah.
Right? Just enjoy the big splurgy meal and then go back to eating your regular nice variety diet after that, and you'll be fine.
And I also liked, of course, from the skepticism point of view, you gave examples of people who are, I'll use the word, you didn't use it, but, hucksters, scamsters, whatever, that are promoting things and don't listen to...
Oh, you mean the supplement industry?
Well, among other things.
Yeah.
It reminds me, many years ago, my dad had subscribed to a newsletter printed by a doctor, and he asked me what I thought of this article, and the article started out by saying that statins, the medicine for improving your heart and your cholesterol and helping you survive, that there was absolutely no evidence whatsoever that it increased life expectancy, and you shouldn't take your statins at all. And I didn't know anything about it, so my dad and I sat down at the computer on the Google, and this was many years ago, and there was an endless number of studies and meta-studies of the studies that showed that there is a material and significant and statistically significant data to show that statins do increase longevity. Life expectancy is increased when you take a statin if you have the proper conditions for it. It's not for everybody. And so my dad goes, well, let's look at the next thing that he says. And I go, okay, well, Dad, this is the first couple sentences that this guy said. And he's a doctor. And so he either doesn't know about any of this stuff and he was willing to write without double checking, or he knows about this stuff and he's lying to you. So he's either incompetent or a fraud and a liar. Which one of those is okay? I don't want to know what he says second or third, because right off the bat, it's just unbelievable.
Well, you've hit one of the big red flags, which is gurus.
Yeah.
If you get somebody who's giving health advice that's, they say, I've got the answer, well, if you're used to studying religions from the outside, that will sound familiar right there.
Yeah.
But a good way to spot them is, one, if a doctor appears on their website wearing a smock and a stethoscope,
yeah,
instant red flag.
Yeah.
Look right next to them. There's probably a shopping cart.
Yeah.
And if you find a website that has both of those, just move on to the next one, because you're not going to get valid health advice there.
What are some other red flags? They're all in the book, of course. People can get, again, in the book, Relax and Enjoy Your Food. It's in my favorite format, audio, which you did, as we talked about.
Yep, read by the author.
I a little tongue-in-cheek, I tell people I pay people to read me books because I'm so busy. I don't have time to read. I pay people to read it to me. And thank you, by the way.
It's true. In fact, I appreciate the fact that even though I was willing to send you a free PDF, you paid to get the audiobook for this.
Yeah, I have the double plus good subscription on Audible, and I try to do 2 books every month, and one is fiction, one is nonfiction, and I'm often trying to get a book that has nothing to do with anything I've ever read before, just to try to expand and always learning. But
nice. What
are other red flags that we can look for?
Being outside the consensus. When someone says,
yes.
I've got the answer that nobody else has. Another big one is if they claim that whatever it is they're hawking does too many different things.
Oh, it cures like 50 things?
Cures 50 things. It's good for, your baldness and your sciatica, and it'll help you lose weight, and you'll be more virile, and you'll be able to run faster. And about the only things that do that in real life are exercise and sleep.
Yeah.
Those are about the only things that are that broad. Another is, and a big one, is I tell people to just ignore anybody who's trying to make you afraid of a food or an ingredient.
Again, a tie-in with religion.
Exactly.
They create the problem, and then they create the solution, and for a small fee, you can buy the solution for the problem that they just created for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a lot of the fear mongering. So if you're being made to feel afraid, like watching Fox News, maybe you should do something else, and that applies with food.
Well, and here's something that your audience will run into more often. How about a no GMO sticker or an organic sticker or the word natural on a piece of food? Those
Yeah.
are all really just fear-based marketing techniques.
Absolutely. So I know you talked about it in the book. Talk to me about GMO. How evil is it?
Ooh, you have no idea. Yeah. So GMO in a way doesn't even exist. It's not the right way to look at things, but GM technology is simply a precise way of doing what we've been doing for 10,000 years anyway.
Yeah.
You know, none, one of the big jokes about the paleo diet is that, you know, with all the other absurdities aside, none of the ingredients from the Paleolithic still exist because all of our food has evolved mostly under our control.
Yeah.
You can't even get the ingredients. GM just simply lets us do very precisely what we've tried to do with crossbreeding and mutagenesis. This is the funny one. Let me back up just a second, because the basic principle here is fear of modernity.
Yeah.
That's what's behind fears of GMO or you know, even gluten and, you know, other things like that. That fear is what, you know, of technology is what's driving a lot of the GM fears. Although it's also because there have been very well-funded, very long misinformation campaigns by the organic food industry and, surprisingly enough, by Russia.
Yeah.
To badmouth or make you afraid of GM. But people who are afraid of GM are fine with mutagenesis, which is literally torturing plants with chemicals until they mutate in some way that might work.
Right. And, you know, like I think I have this correctly, that broccoli and cauliflower come from the same plant many years ago, and we've adjusted them and adapted them, just like, at least in the United States, cattle. You know, someone says, well, let's let cattle go free like they used to be. Well, those cows aren't going to survive in the wild.
They never existed that way.
They never existed that way. Or turkeys for Thanksgiving to increase the productivity and the size and the weight of turkeys. A lot of them cannot actually reproduce without assistance from humans because they're so big that the parts don't fit together.
Yeah.
You know, those are things that we have caused to happen, and sometimes over hundreds or thousands of years. And GMO allows us to do that quicker. So it's kind of the same thing, but, you know, just a much more efficient way of doing it, we hope.
Yep. Yeah, it's people claim that it hasn't been studied, and there have been thousands and thousands of studies. It's been in the food supply for 20, 40 years, depending on what part of the food supply you're talking about. It's well understood. It's well known. It's probably the biggest divide between the general public and scientists that shows up in polling. You know, something like 95% of scientists say, yeah, GMOs are safe and nutritious, and only like 30 some or 40 some percent of general public have the same opinion.
One of the things that just popped into my head, you were talking about, what was it? Organics.
Yes.
And of course, the price is wildly higher, sometimes even double or more.
2 to 3 times often.
And, but, you know, I'm paying more. Surely I must be getting something that's more nutritious, more natural. Well, I'm using buzzwords here for you.
Wink, wink.
And somehow better for me, right? Is that the case?
That's what they've done an excellent job at convincing people of.
Yeah.
Over the past 4 decades or so. It turns out there is no evidence for any nutritional advantage to eating organic.
So there's not an improvement in nutrition, and they may actually, without fertilizers and modified plant that grows more efficiently, use more land, which actually could be bad for our environment.
Turns out that organic uses about 20% more land than conventional.
Okay.
Which is a lot.
Go ahead.
So if the world, if you look at what just happened in Sri Lanka, where they tried to go all organic overnight,
yeah,
it was a complete disaster. just a clusterfuck of enormous magnitude. Yeah, if you want the entire world to go organic, you get to pick which 2 or 3 billion people are going to starve. It's
because
pretty much that.
almost everything I can think of in our modern diet that, corn, for example, did not exist in nature, that the way it is what we eat today. Not even close.
Nope, not even close.
Bananas.
Or the atheist nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even close. We already talked about cows and turkeys, broccoli, a lot of the things they didn't grow where they grow now. We've changed everything, and a lot of times it's for money. A lot of times it's for efficiency. A lot of times because it can feed a lot more people, like golden rice that has been fortified and probably literally saved 1 billion lives. These things are improvements.
Saved a lot of children from going blind.
Yeah. Is there anything about the book that we haven't covered that you want to tease the listeners with, or inform them, or about you, kind of as a wrap up? What have I missed?
Well, one little thing is for those of you who, if you get an electronic edition, all those little footnotes are just hyperlinks, and they'll just take you right out into the world. And I thought, well, people who buy the ODT, the On Dead Tree version, or people like you who get the Audible version, why shouldn't they have access to that? So I set up a website, www.relaxandenjoyyourfood.com.
Straightforward.
And all the links are there.
Very nice.
You can just go to that and get into all the further reading you want.
Are you available if someone wants to ask you a question or invite you to speak somewhere?
Sure. I'm pretty easy to find on my website. If your web search skills are at all good. I'm also occasionally, I'm on Twitter far more than is probably healthy, at CLGood. You can reach me there. I'm not that hard to find, and I've given a couple of talks about the book, and would be happy to do it for anybody who's interested in just getting a healthier relationship with their food.
Excellent. Once again, listeners, the book is titled Relax and Enjoy Your Food by Craig Good, who is our guest today. And I thank you so much for coming, and I appreciate you taking your time to tell us more about eating good food. I thank you.
My pleasure. Happy eating.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. A couple things you can do for me if you're so inclined. Go leave a review of the podcast. Apple Podcasts is a great place to do that. Also, Stitcher. You can go leave a 5-star review. It gives people that stumble across the show the impression that it might actually be a professional product, which is always kind of nice. Because if they look, I was once somewhere and told them I have a podcast, and they're like, yeah, everybody has a podcast. And they looked it up and saw hundreds and hundreds of reviews, and that's kind of cool. The other thing I didn't even notice at the time of recording the intro, this is show number 400. And I had a show before that, and then a couple of years before that, I was on someone else's podcast pretty regularly. So 400, and lately I haven't been doing 52 a year, probably not even 50, probably not as low as 40 a year. So without checking, I'm probably 8 years with this podcast, maybe over 10 years, 11 years of doing podcasts in general. Damn. It's a lot of stuff. I should have had a party. I was so busy I didn't even think about it being 400. But anyway, things are going well. I didn't mention the solar panels in the beginning segment when I was talking about my car. They're working fine. They're working as expected. It is amazing because I now pay much more attention to the sky and clouds, just out of curiosity how much electricity I'm going to make. And for my area, the Chicagoland suburbs, southwest Chicago suburbs, the number of days where it is 0 clouds for the entire day is really small. Really small. I think I've not kept the meticulous track of this, but it's about 1 day a month. Only 1 day a month where it's completely clear the entire fucking day. There's usually some wispy clouds or some fluffy clouds. I mean, it can be like 100% clear for 90% of the day, but not 100% clear for 100% of the day. I never really paid attention to notice how rare and absolutely perfectly clear day is. So if you're somewhere where it's more clear all the time and at the same latitude, you're going to get better results than me. Of course, if you are farther south, it's going to be even better. If it's south and sunny, more sunny, it's going to be even better. If they face south, even betterer, because mine face east and west, and there's a 8 to 15% improvement if they face south. And of course, often on a south-facing roof, they just put the panels on that roof and they don't do the perfect adjustment at the ideal angle for your environment. And so if they're on the ground, they can change the angle, and you might even get a couple more percent of performance if you're not obstructed by some trees or something. But pretty happy with the solar panels, the amount of electricity they produce in November, late November. It's kind of sad. And another interesting thought, if it's just a little bit of wispy clouds or even some big fluffy white clouds, they often bounce around the light. And so you get pretty much the same production with light clouds or with clouds that let through a lot of light than you do with almost no clouds. The real killer, of course, is if you have an overcast day and the clouds are thick and it's dark and it's rainy, or if there's snow on your solar panels. A nod to the upcoming months. That really dark clouds crush the performance. Last year, a couple times when I had an inch or two of snow on the panels and a bright sunny day, the snow did not block much light at all. It was pretty neat. But when you get 6 to 8 inches of snow or a foot of snow like we had for a couple days on the panels, you get basically nothing. It's like a big blanket. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show. And like I said in the intro section, coming up next episode, we're going to talk about, I have a segment on my visit to hear about annuities and how cool they are, which very interesting, very fun. Everyone was great. Had a nice time. It was great to be out mingling with a dozen people. Woo! So hopefully we've turned the corner. Hopefully it's not too soon on COVID and we can get past that and actually meet each other at big conferences in 2022. I'm hoping that's the case, because I am about ready to explode and go out into the world and see people again. So I do hope to see you out on the road sometime in 2022. And until then, ciao.
Well, I was born too late to play in the Rolling Stones. I don't know Jimmy Page, I never met Yoko Ono. Standing with a strap, I'm rock and roll's bastard son. Go out, get drunk, get laid, have fun. Don't got $1 million, don't drive a Cadillac. Give me half a chance, cause I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun, I'm not dead yet. I've been machine gun, handgun, hijack, left for dead. Dive bomb, napalm, nuclear warheaded. Dropped from a jet plane with no parachute. Shot by a firing squad and raped by a business suit. Dancing on a landmine, one leg left. I can still crawl and I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun, I'm not dead yet. Well, you're bigger, rougher, meaner, tougher, dirtier and uglier and sneakier and trickier. You wanna shoot me with a gun, cut me with a knife. Take your bare hands and rip out my eyes. Kick me in the balls and you bit me in the neck. Well, have me again, cause I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun, I'm not dead There's a girl at the bar wants to get me by the